So, Dr. Webb, how's it going today?
It is going great.
That's
the
good.
sun is shining. It's warming up outside.
Yeah, it's 60 degrees there, and I think it's like 40 or 50 here in Dallas. And I'm just kind of like, I'm not liking it. But no, I'm so happy that you're here. I feel, we went from TikTok and now we're here.
Yes, I love it.
And I'm not sure if I don't talk about my podcast on my TikTok at all. It's just me having fun. So yeah, I'm just happy that you were open to it, because you're like, this doesn't have anything to do with what she talks about her TikTok, because it's random.
But I enjoy your TikToks though. They are fun.
Okay,
yeah, I like
good. Okay, so we're going to be talking about colorism today. That is your area of expertise. And I have so many questions for you. So let's just dive right in. So give me a little brief, what was the instance that made you want to get involved in doing work for healing colorism?
Yeah. So I think it was a culmination of things. I think it was the accumulation of all the experiences I had in my life. So obviously I experienced it as a dark-skinned, Black girl growing up in South Louisiana at that. But I didn't speak up about it. And so I think what gave me the push to finally speak up was two things. One, I was teaching high school, and my students, it was a predominantly African-American high school, and my students were saying colorist things. And part of me, because I had not done any studying, had never talked about colorism before, even though I was experiencing it. So part of me was really surprised that this was still happening. I was like, I thought this was just a thing in my generation. I thought this was something that would have gone away after I left high school. But it hit me that it's going to continue to go from generation to generation to generation if we don't do something. So I think that kind of woke me up that this is a problem that's going to continue if we don't actually try to do something. And the second thing is that also happened to be the year when Bill Duke came out with the documentary. Bill Duke and other people et al., I should say, came out with the Dark Girls documentary. And I saw Ta-Nehisi Coates post about how his light-skinned mother scolded him for saying he only date light-skinned girls in response to the movie. And he posted the trailer. He embedded the preview of the movie in his blog post. And that made me feel like it was safe enough to talk. Because I was like, okay, here go these famous people saying things that I have been seeing my whole life, but nobody was trying to hit it. And so now it's like, okay, I'm not the only one saying it. Like, here's proof that it's not just me. I'm not just crazy. I'm not just being too sensitive. So that kind of also gave me the courage to finally speak publicly about it.
Yeah, that's great. And I did some research, and in the past 5 years, there's been almost a tripling of increase on Google searches on colorism. I'm not sure if you know that. And the spike happened. It's so funny. It happened in June of 2020. And of course, right? And also June of 2021 is when the spikes both happened on Google for people searching for colorism. And they were attached to Lin-Manuel Miranda. Mm-hmm. It was attached to Blackish. And I want to say, what's that show that makes everybody cry? This Is Us. I haven't seen This Is Us. I'm not going to watch This Is Us because I don't want to cry. But
I haven't watched it in a while, but I cry every episode. So
see,
you're good.
Life is hard enough. Okay. I don't need that. So why do you think it's funny you said that about Ta-Nehisi Coates? Why do you think, other than the obvious reasons of, what happened in 2020, why do you think there has been a consistent increase in interest in this topic?
Yeah. Well, I'll say I'm super excited that happened, because when I started, it wasn't like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that was actually a motivation for starting it too, is because I wasn't seeing enough conversations that people could access online. They had books written, but nobody was reading books and learning about color. It's like, we got to do something online. So I think, and it's interesting you said 2020 was like a really big spike, because that's also when my following grew, because I started in between 2011 and 2013. And I was just kind of like, 2,000 followers, 3,000 followers, and 2020 hit. And I was like, I'm in the 5 digits. But I think one is the internet, right? I think as the internet matures as more and more people start to use it and start to engage on it, I think we see conversations that the mainstream had ignored finally gaining traction.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And finally, people who do know about colorism are able to build platforms and help to spread that awareness. And then also, I think I look at the younger generations and I'm always like, they are so much more woke at their age than I was at that age. And so I think we're just seeing, like, fortunately, because the information has now been out there, people are able to discover it sooner in life at earlier ages. And we know millennials, yes. But also, what's the generation after millennials? Gen Z?
Gen Z, yes, the babies. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, they are, I think, taking the internet by storm. With TikTok grew. Why am I fumbling through my words? TikTok took off because of them. And I think they are even more vocal. They're even more willing to speak truth to power than my generation was. And so they are extremely aware of colorism. I told the story of how I didn't know the word colorism until 2011, 2012, when I started actively blogging and writing about it. So I asked in my comments on Instagram, I said, when did you first learn about colorism? Or about the word colorism? And somebody left a comment, I've always known the word colorism. And part of me was like, but how old are you though?
Yeah, how old are you? Come on now.
Yeah, right. Because, definitely if you have a certain age, that was not a popular term at all. So
yeah, we just knew light skin versus dark skin. That's what I grew up understanding. Light skin versus dark skin. And it's so funny. In my so my mom is light skinned, right? She doesn't consider her light, but I'm like, girl, come on now. Come on now. And my dad, my mom was born and raised in Detroit. My dad is from like deep red dirt, Alabama. You know what I mean? So my dad, he's really, really deep chocolate. And I'm the, in my siblings, I have 3 other siblings. I'm the light skin version. And I'm like, I'm not light skin. You know what I mean? So, but growing up, I would hear that. And as I've gotten older, and I start to look more like my mom, that is what I get. And I don't know how to feel about that. But I also, and I'm bringing this, into my niece. So my niece right now, she's dealing with bullying at school. She's about to turn 8 this year. They've brought up her weight, her skin. And I listened to your story about what happened with your mom and your aunts and how they were complimenting your sister versus you. What were some of the things that you felt if you could go back and whisper in someone's ear during that time, what were some of the things that you wish would have been affirmed to you about who you are?
Come on, Tiara, that's a deep question. That's not where I thought that question was going. That's really cool. Okay. I thought you were just going to ask me what experiences I had. You know what I mean? Which is, a valid question, but I like where you took it. Yeah. But I think to that point is I see you because like I said, I was talking to someone in Atlanta earlier, and in a lot of those instances, people would not actively criticize me. They wouldn't actively bully me. They just would act like I wasn't there. So in showering my lighter skinned sister or my lighter skinned cousins with compliments, they walk into the house or walk into the room like, oh, they're so cute and so pretty. Look at these beautiful girls. Just all the attention is on my sisters or cousins who are lighter, and not a word will be said to me or about me, just like as if I was not there. And so I think even just, it's kind of sad to think about, but like even just like, oh, hey, I see you too. Like you're in the room as well. We acknowledge you. And we also think you're a pretty little girl, right? But I think also having those experiences, feeling that, especially as a young age, did make me bitter, did put a chip on my shoulder, right? As the darker skinned sister who was constantly, ignored or not validated when the person right next to me was being validated. And so that then became a self-fulfilling prophecy because people thought I had an attitude, or people thought, well, she's the mean one. I'm like, I wouldn't be mean if y'all would treat me the same way y'all treat other people in the room, right? And so it kind of became this like vicious cycle. And so I think one of the things that could have been affirmed was like you're not bad, or you're not mean. You're not mean. You actually have a valid concern. Like that would have been a great affirmation. A great affirmation if an adult or an older person would have told me, no, like what you're seeing and feeling is actually happening to you. And we're not going to gaslight you and say, oh, just, don't worry about what they say. Don't worry about what they think. Like, no, we acknowledge that this is a real thing that happens in the world, and we're sorry that it's happening to you. But the way you feel is a valid response to being treated that way. And then I think, it would have helped if I did have other adults who were aware and actively talking about it. Even if they couldn't change the situation, I think it would have helped if I had at least seen that people knew and cared.
Mm-hmm. That what you said about being called mean, I was also called mean too. And I was just a kid, but do you feel that and I feel like the compliments that Black dark-skinned girls received are very different than the compliments that light-skinned girls received. Very, very different. And a lot of the compliments that we received, me and my sisters, we're all of our community we grew up in, we were considered, the smart girls, the ones who were all college educated, D9, all those things. But looking back now that we're on this discussion, it feels like there was some unconscious, compensation to make up for, okay, well, at least, I'm not pretty, but I'm smart as hell. You know what I mean? So do you think there's some truth to that? And expecting that, dark-skinned women, like, we kind of have to compensate in so many different ways,
1,000%. 1,000%. And actually I've done a couple. I think I did one recently talking about like, I don't know. We internalize the colorism sometimes. Mm-hmm. And, when Black folks say, oh, we have to be twice as good as white folks. I'm like, as a dark-skinned person, does that mean I have to be 3 times as good as everybody else? That's really how I felt like. And that's my exact story. I was like, well, I ain't gonna get no points for being pretty. So I gotta be smarter. I gotta be funnier. I gotta be cooler. I gotta just in some way prove my value or prove my worth, right? And I think part of the healing process that I've gone through and that I try to coach other dark-skinned people through is that, no, you don't have to prove that, right? It's inherent. You can stand in it, sit in it, just being you. And you don't have to like add on all these extra layers. I used to think, oh, maybe if I learn 5 languages, then that'll be the trick that makes it.
I've tried to learn 4. So you probably I tried to learn 4.
I don't know 2. So okay. That was a stretch for me, but okay. Yeah, that's definitely a thing. And I think even, when it comes to like wearing my natural hair, mm-hmm. sometimes it's the idea of like, well, I wouldn't dare be dark skinned and have short hair. I wouldn't dare be dark skinned and have a natural, or I wouldn't dare be dark skinned and wear loud colors. I can't wear yellow. I can't wear red lipstick. And so there are a lot of ways that I feel dark skinned women feel like we have to contort ourselves even more mm-hmm. than other women in particular have to.
So what are some of the daily practices that you use to work with that through that contortion?
Yeah. So I'm going to talk about affirmations, and I know people who follow me regularly going to get sick and tired. They got a TikTok sound I want to use called "Y'all gonna get sick of me. Y'all gonna get sick of me."
I love that sound. I love that sound.
Yes, they're going to get sick of me talking about affirmations. But that was when I think my life really started to change when I started applying and using affirmations. And mm-hmm. affirmations could come in any form. It could be a song that's an affirmation mm-hmm. for you. And like, it could be like a YouTube TED talk. You can watch a TEDx talk on YouTube and that's affirming for you. But just like positive words, positive messages, and writing them down, saying them to myself. And in the beginning, when I had the most work to do, it was, I was extra with it. I have to say that depending on where you are in your journey, if you're just starting, you might have to be a little extra with some of your daily practices to really get over the inertia, right? That inertia of just starting. And so I would do them every day. I had like a blue composition notebook, and I had filled it up like thousands of affirmations and like quotes and stuff like that. But also, I think knowing when you're most vulnerable is really helpful. So I used to wake up in the morning and like my thought spiral would just automatically start. So I was like, okay, I can't let myself just lay in bed. Because if I lay in bed, I'm going to start thinking, and that's going to be bad for me. So I did that. I was like, okay, get up as soon as you can and start your day and just override that tendency to go down a negative thought spiral. And then on top of that, I was like, until I get to a place where I can trust my own thoughts to be positive and affirming, I'm going to listen to someone else's voice instead of listening to my voice. Because right now, my voice is not working with me. It's working against me. And so I would like have, again, a YouTube video or a podcast or just some audio that I could click play on in the morning that I can listen to when I'm waking up and doing that sort of thing. So I think those have been the most consistent daily practices I've used.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I use affirmations as well. I'm not that good at them, but when I use them, they're very powerful. I have started incorporating more inspirational music into my daily diet, which is, I'm getting there. My next question is, so we talked about the risings in 2020 and how they affected people's views on colorism. What does healing look like now that people are, I guess you could say, more woke or aware of the situation for everybody?
So I think my own definition of healing has evolved as I've been doing this work. And I think of it as like 4 layers. And the first layer is, I think, what most of us think about, which is just like healing my own emotional pain and healing the way I think about myself, healing, self-love kind of healing and cultivating self-love, cultivating self-confidence, self-acceptance just for ourselves as individuals. But I also talk about healing as retraining our brains with the biases that we've been entrenched with, right? And so if someone has a negative bias towards someone because they're darker or because their hair texture is a certain way or they have wide features, like unlearning that. I think unlearning the negative racist stereotypes that have led to colorism in the first place is a part of that healing work as well. And I think the layer next to that is healing our relationships with each other. And actually, I just posted on my Instagram a conversation I did with my biological sister as a lighter skinned person. And I think we know, like you said, light skin versus dark skin, how colorism has ruined a lot of the ties within the Black community, within the African American community, even within actual families, like not even just the Black community as a concept, but like actual families don't like each other because colorism has gotten in there and messed with people, right? And so healing relationships with each other means taking accountability for where we have caused harm, taking accountability for the ways that we maybe take up too much space or have certain privileges, taking accountability for the ways that we have committed acts of violence or bullied our own, family, or made jokes that to us were just jokes, but we don't know who might have been offended by that. You know what I mean? And then just making a commitment to do better and to change. And then I think about healing because I see colorism as a disease, a social disease. And so eradicating that from the social fabric gradually. I mean, there are theories that say stuff like this will never go away. But if we can get to a tipping point where even if it still exists, it's not the dominant narrative out there in society.
Yeah, as long as we can get to the point where everyone agrees this is actually wrong. You know what I mean? Like, I think we're at the point where people are ashamed and embarrassed, as they should be, to be identified as a racist. I would like to see that happen with colorism. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I would like to see. Don't call me a colorist. Don't call me. Yeah, no, it is what you are. You need to be addressing that. So I also want to talk about Tandy Newton. Did you see what happened? Her beautiful apology. Love it. So fantastic, because we needed that.
I mean, she's an actress,
Yeah.
She has a flair.
Yeah. What did you think about that?
So I admit that I am not the best with keeping up with and responding to celebrity news and stuff like that. Because even people have been like, have you talked about this? Like, where are you, Dr. Webb? But I actually did an interview with Mark Lamont Hill on it because someone else couldn't do it. So they reached out to me. And so one of the first things I said was, I don't even call it an apology. I don't even think it was an apology. I think a declaration. I feel like it was, I'm sorry you feel that way, right? Like if somebody does something and you like call them out on it and say, oh, I feel like you were being racist. I'm like, well, I'm sorry you feel like I'm a racist, but I'm not. That's basically what it's felt like to me. Like I am innocent here when what I think she didn't do was take responsibility, which is what we would have really needed. Like as an actress, Tandy Way Newton, you could say no. And we have seen younger biracial actresses say no. And they get it. They're like, ooh, I have a lot of other opportunities I could take. I'm going to pass on this one because it don't feel right to take up this kind of space. And I'm like, if the youngins can get it, Tandy Way, you also could have said no to certain things or said, if I accept this, I'm bringing somebody else with me. I remember somebody did that on a magazine cover one time. I think, I don't know if they were different skin tones, but I remember one actress who was a little more famous maybe said, if I'm going to be on the cover for this film, I want my co-star on the cover right beside me. Right. And like, there are actual things you can take, which are more helpful than you crying on the internet about things that you could have changed. So that was how I felt about it.
Yeah. When I heard her, I call it a declaration of a light-skinned. That's what I call it. When I heard that, I now give her the same heat that I give Zoe Saldana for playing that role, playing Nina Simone. I give her the same heat now because it's like, you're obviously aware. If you have to go and sit in a chair and get layers of skin on your face, get into blackface, get into a whole bodysuit,
prosthetic nose,
something is not like something isn't right there. You know what I mean? Like, because there are people born with those features and they're walking all over California. You know what I mean? So I give her that same heat. So how do you think that entertainment perpetuates that? Because I'll also bring in an article that I read about Black couples that you see even in commercials. And it's always wild to me. Even like, okay, so like, the man is always going to be dark skinned, right? He's going to be a dark skinned brother, right? Yep. The woman, she's going to be light skinned, right? Yep. And even if she isn't, if say she's medium dark skinned, the daughter will be biracial. And I don't understand that. You know what I mean? Yeah. But you know what I'm talking about, right?
The lengths they go to be colorist. I'm like, y'all,
it just don't make sense.
Y'all going out of y'all way to be colorist. Like, you going out of your way to do this. And 100% correct. I think, and I've had people say, when you point out to somebody that the man is most likely going to be dark, the man is most likely going to be darker and the woman is most likely going to be lighter. I've had people come back and say, I see it all the time now. I can't unsee it. It's like, you can't unsee that pattern because it's so pervasive. So that's definitely true. And I think even if the woman is dark skinned, it's the man is always darker. Right? Like, even if it's like a darker brown woman, they're going to find a man who's even darker than her. And it's rare. I think people like, let's say Issa Rae, I really do like Issa Rae, where for a while she was dating a lighter skinned man and like her co-star was dating like men who were lighter. Like, when that happens, it's intentional. And so I heard Issa Rae doing a live interview once. She was asked the question, did you purposely have two dark-skinned leading ladies instead of always going with the cliche light-skinned friend, dark-skinned friend, right? And she was like, yeah, I did that on purpose because in reality, two dark-skinned people can be best friends, right? And so I think someone like her is very intentional and very aware about how they're presenting people of different skin tones on screen. And so I do think that that team was like, yo, let's break out of that trope and like, let's let the guy be the lighter one in the relationship for a change. And then to your point about the mixed race daughter, I remember I was doing on a panel with on the Tammy Mack show, and those people, they have way more access, like insight into Hollywood than I do. And someone said that on My Wife and Kids, I think it was, the daughter when she was really young was actually dark skinned or like darker skin and like fit in with the family look, the family features. But when she was supposed to grow up and become of dating age, the producers, the showrunners were like, well, we have to make her look like someone that we think boys would date, that we think boys would be interested in. And so that's a very interesting dynamic. And even when I think about the show, The Wonder Years, and how you have all of these like beautiful dark-skinned women, but the love interest of the main character is a little lighter and has like a looser curl pattern. She's not, I wouldn't say she's light-skinned, but she's lighter than him, right? And I think there is, whether it's a white person making the movie, a non-Black person, and unfortunately, even when we make our own movies, there's this belief that particularly if the woman is supposed to be attractive to men, that it can't be a dark-skinned woman, or it can't be a woman with natural hair, right? Or it can't even be like a plus-size woman even. Like it has to be a very narrow, white supremacist, patriarchal version of what a attractive woman looks like.
Yeah.
Very probably.
Did you know that this is allegedly the role that HBO wanted, the actress that they wanted to play Issa's character was Lauren London.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like...
I read that in her book.
Yeah.
She said, like, they suggested Lauren London. She was like, they don't get it. And I'm so thankful that she didn't back down,
yes,
right?
Yes.
Because a lot of people would have said, well, let me go ahead and get this check. You know, it's a job, you know, who am I? But like, because she wasn't even popular yet.
No, she was not.
It's not like she had rank. Like now of course she has rank. But back then she was just getting started and she said, no, thank you. So until more people are willing to do that, willing to say, no, thank you, willing to say, this might be what y'all say we want, but it ain't what I'm going to do. I just don't think there are enough, even amongst Black creators, there aren't enough of us who are courageous enough to do that in Hollywood or whatever other media industry.
Do you think that's something that's changing though? Or do you think that we're almost there? Maybe? Yeah.
No, I think hopefully Issa Rae sees this and, you know, brings me on her next project. But I think she's an example.
Me too. I got your cup, sis.
Hey, see? Boom.
We got y'all.
If you're out there, we're sending out the bat signal.
Yes.
But I think she's an example of change.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, I love how everyone who's was a part of that Insecure project, I've seen them do other work. I've seen them like go on to write for other shows, direct other things, star in other things, just make their own projects. Also, a relatively new show that I love is Abbott Elementary with Quinta Brunson.
Yes.
Black Lady Sketch Show.
Yes.
I love it.
And
so
Twitter. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, she's from Twitter? I don't know that much about Twitter.
Sorry. No. Yeah, that's how she got famous. But I'm listening. Go on.
Okay, cool. Yeah. See, that's good. The internet is giving people opportunities.
Yes.
Even Issa Rae said she wouldn't be where she was if it wasn't for YouTube, right? But so that's really exciting to know that Quinta Brunson is where she is just from starting on Twitter. Mm-hmm. I love that.
Yeah.
But one of the reasons why I like the dark skin representation in that show is because they're also like not the Kelly Rowland kind of dark skinned girls, if you catch my drift, right? They are fuller. One of the older teachers is an older dark skinned Black woman with really full lips, you know, and like curves and things like that. And even Quinta Brunson herself, you know, she's shorter and has like a full face. And I'm just like, you don't have to look like Tika Sumpter or Kelly Rowland as a dark-skinned person to be in a leading role on TV. And I love that.
Even the principal, who is hilarious.
Me and my mom was like, she's the funniest one.
She is the funniest one. Didn't she have like a foot scrub in her office or something, like foot soak in her office?
I love her character so much.
But what I love about her is that she's so like kind of relatable. You know what I mean? Like when you look at like schools in America, she's not the only dark skinned principal that there is.
Right.
You know what I mean? But
Yes.
if you looked at Hollywood, how they usually portray principals in urban cities, it's not us, you know? So.
And just the fact that we can name 3 dark-skinned actresses on one show.
Yes.
Unprecedented.
One show. Unprecedented.
Usually they might have a token. But yeah, I'm just like, I really like what I'm seeing here. So that more sign of progress. I think that's really big progress, actually, is Abbott Elementary.
And also, I love how they, the children there's like a variance of the children. Like, it's just it's very intentional and mindful. You know what I mean? It's, yeah.
I know. The kids look like real kids. They don't look like, sterilized versions of what people want kids to be, right? They look like they really took local kids from the community. It was like, hey, y'all come get this money.
Yes.
I love it.
My favorite one is a little girl who asked to be in Quinta's Janine's class. And Quinta was like, oh, she wants to be in my class because I'm a better teacher. You know what I mean? And that girl put her through hell. That was hilarious. Hilarious.
And just like the being able to be imperfect as dark-skinned Black woman, like we were talking about the principal, she can be extremely flawed, but still be likable and still be a fan favorite as a dark-skinned woman. And it's not like, oh, the dark-skinned woman is cast as this like stereotype or the antagonist or, just like some evil person. And it's really refreshing. And it's sad that I don't think I've ever seen anything like that. It's just it's healing the younger version of me who would flip through channel after channel. And even once streaming came along, you're searching through HBO Max, you're searching through Hulu, you're searching through Netflix. And even now in 2022, it's still rare, even on the Amazon Prime, it's still rare to see movies and TV shows that do a good job of portraying dark-skinned women. They're more, but it's still hard.
It's still hard. And I know for me, when I want to watch something, I go to search and I just put in Black. That's just how I search things. And it's always a slew of things that come up. And I think it's interesting. This will be my last question, but it's interesting what you said about the principal, because that character is allowed to be flawed so much in like our professional careers. Like, we are expected to be absolutely perfect, know what you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of that you gotta be 3 times as good. So yeah, it's very refreshing to see.
It is.
Do you feel that's something also that is changing? I'm sure you probably work with corporations to help talk to them about colorism in the past 2 years. Do you think that is something that's also changing?
I find it encouraging that so many companies do reach out and want to bring colorism to their employees. And I will say, most of the times when people are contacting me, it's not coming from like top level management in the company. It's usually coming from employees who are like, oh yeah, we saw your work, or oh, we want somebody to talk about this. And so we're going to bring it to your company. But sometimes like top level executives might be on the event, might be joining most of them are virtual. They might be like on the session listening. But I do think that that's encouraging, because I'm sure prior to 2020, like they would have been like, colorism, like what y'all talking about? Like, we barely figured out race. Like, I know you ain't trying to bring this now too. And so I like that. And it's been, I think there still needs to be more though, because usually that's the first time they've talked about colorism. And it's usually just like colorism 101. What is it? And so I think going forward, a lot of companies and businesses will have to get beyond like, okay, now it's great. You have that awareness. You at least are able to know it and identify it. But now let's look at some of your company policies and like workplace practices, and look at your hiring patterns and trends, and like, is there actual equity amongst people of different skin tones and that sort of thing. So I think that would be a next step, but it is a great step that people are at least making themselves aware. And I think that's an important first step.
Okay. And I think we have a long way to go in that aspect. So we do have to wrap it up. I won't take up too much of your time. Is there anything else that you would like to say, to the listeners about what you do and how they can find you? And also about healing. Yeah.
Yeah. About what I do. So my platform is Colorism Healing, and you can find me on any place on the internet, my website, colorismhealing.com, and just about every social media platform. And I use that as a space to raise awareness about colorism. And for people who want to go beyond just the informational content and sometimes entertaining content, you can work with me either by hiring me to speak at your company, for example. But I also do coaching, small group coaching, one-on-one coaching with people who want more hands-on support in their healing journey. And so to that, what I would encourage anyone listening to do is to self-reflect. And before we can figure out how to solve a problem, we have to understand where we are now, right? So a lot of people ask for a plan, like what's the plan from here? And so whether you're a company, a business, a parent, a teacher, or just an individual who wants to heal, the first step is to see where you are now and why you got there. And so if you are lacking self-confidence, if you don't love your own skin tone, know where you are and consider, well, what about my life has got me to this point? And that way you can decide, you can see better how to move forward from there.